Hey everyone! Thanks for tuning in to the first episode in my series, Ben's Steak Tips, where I share my culinary knowledge and trade secrets to help you unlock better flavor and prepare superior food. Today's episode is all about alcohol and its uses in your creations in your home. I'm going to break down how and when you should use it and what you shouldn't use it in. Behind me, I actually have a few bottles of my barbecue sauce that I use on my food truck, the Big Bad. And I want to share a secret ingredient with you, but first, let's just talk about taste, okay? You've probably seen this tongue map, right? I mean, feel like everybody's learned about this in grade school. It's how you interpret flavors that come across your palate. Well, I am here to tell you, throw it away. It's trash. That's garbage. Don't follow that. That's nonsense, okay? Your taste buds are incredible little receptors that have so much more to offer. All right, perfect example that ignores the tongue map. Have you ever brushed your teeth and then gone to have a glass of orange juice? You know what would usually be a very pleasant, sweet experience turns into a rather horrible, bitter one? Well, in this case, it's because of a detergent, actually, that's found in it called sodium lauryl sulfate. And that's found in most toothpaste brands. These molecules actually displace lipid membranes on your taste buds, much like how dish soap on a greasy plate allows fat to get washed away. The SLS locks up your sweet receptors and doesn't allow it to actually go into your tongue, so your brain can't translate it. This reaction actually causes those taste buds that would normally interpret sweet as bitter and horrible, and thus you have a very unpleasant experience. Now, using this particular knowledge, knowing that not everything is as black and white as the tongue map, and your taste receptors in your tongue can actually taste a little bit of everything, we can learn how to interpret our taste in a whole new way. Alcohol, much like sugar and salt, has a profound effect on your taste buds. Now, it's super potent and occasionally overwhelming, so you have to use it with a light hand. Like too much of anything, too much alcohol is not good. But we can use alcohol to our advantage in our food by using alcohol to change how other flavors are received, and therefore allowing our palate to taste more. Now, alcohol is a solubilizer, much like water and fat. But we often don't get to see its true potential. Now, if you've ever deglazed a pan, you cook a nice steak and you deglaze the pan, all to get all that goodness left behind, which, by the way, in the culinary world we call fond. Some of you might know that. We're very fond of fond, as my old culinary instructor used to say. If you've deglazed a pan, you've used a solubilizer to break up and dissolve all those good bits to make a sauce or whatever. But instead of using water or broth, have you ever tried using wine? Have you ever tried using a spirit? I'm sure a lot of you have, but if you haven't, you've got to try it. It changes the entire profile of that sauce and therefore the steak that you're going to be putting it on or whatever you happen to cook. The molecules that are left behind, some of them are only soluble in alcohol. Tomatoes are a perfect example. There are a few flavors in tomatoes that you can only taste with alcohol. That's why a traditional tomato sauce can't hold a candle to a vodka sauce, because the alcohol unlocks a whole new flavor of the tomato itself. But I'm getting away from my main point that I wanted to make here. There's actually three main reasons why I use alcohol in my barbecue sauce. And those are, number one, its taste-altering properties. We've talked about how when you brush your teeth, you can't taste the sweetness in orange juice. Well, I went in the opposite direction with the alcohol in my sauce actually blocking some of the receptors on your tongue, so a little bit more can go across your entire palate. Alcohol carries fat and water, as well as all of the seasonings associated with that are bonded to them, and that allows it to coat your tongue in a different way. Number two, its solubility beyond water and fat. Now, there are so many flavors and ingredients, like I talked about the tomato, that are alcohol soluble. incredible, complex flavors that you would totally miss out on if you didn't use just a tiny bit. And I don't use much in my sauce, just a little bit of alcohol to carry those new flavors across your tongue. And finally, number 3, it's flavor. Now, some of you might be thinking there isn't that much flavor in alcohol, but trust me, different types of spirits have incredible flavor profiles that are just hidden behind quite an awful punch. I did say that I would share my secret ingredient in this episode in my sauce, and I'm sure you've guessed at this point that it's some kind of alcohol. But can you guess what kind of alcohol I'm using? It's not bourbon or whiskey like you'd see in a traditional barbecue sauce. It's actually rum. And the reason that I use rum, it's a spiced barrel-aged rum, is to get this really rich, toasted sweetness to come across in the finish of the sauce. So next time you are trying to sear a steak and you want to do something a little bit different, try deglazing your pan with some kind of alcohol. Try a shot of whiskey. Try a shot of rum. See how it changes the flavor profile of the dish. Then do it with wine and see how that changes. We know that alcohol is an incredible additive in cooking, but I want to be very clear, it shouldn't be used in a marinade. Now, it shouldn't be used in a marinade raw. And what I mean is, when you put alcohol into a marinade, you should cook it ahead of time. A lot of people think alcohol tenderizes your meat, but it actually doesn't. It does the exact opposite. While raw alcohol is sitting in a marinade touching your meat, the protein is actually going to start to cook. And that alcohol on the outside will denature the exterior of your protein. It causes this kind of like weird mealy texture on the outside, but the meat inside remains tough, and you won't have any new flavors added. Because the alcohol has cooked that top layer, nothing can get through it. If you're going to use alcohol in a marinade, like I said, you have to cook it beforehand and then add it to your mixture. You can do this simply by just like throwing it into a hot saute pan. If you're feeling exceptionally daring, you can light a match over it and let the alcohol actually burn off in a flame. But just putting it on a hot pan for about a minute or so as it reduces will cook out the alcohol just fine. You don't need the big show. This way, when you add it to your marinade, you get the total flavor of the alcohol without ruining your meat. The best way to actually get flavor and tenderizing into your meat is by using salt. And I feel like a lot of people try to get away from using salt in marinades, and you don't have to. You can just use a little bit of salt. But what happens is the salt will carry all of the flavors that you're already working with in your marinade into the meat through osmosis. It works its way through the membranes and pokes holes and pulls in water and your alcohol if you're using that, and all of the flavorings that you use in your marinade, and puts them inside of the meat while pulling out the liquid that's already in the meat. And this happens to stabilize it and equalize the water that's in your protein and in the marinade around it. It simultaneously tenderizes it and flavors it. You get a really incredible piece of meat. And you can do this for as little as 2 hours and as long as like 24 hours, but you start to lose potency after about 24 hours. You won't get much more into the meat. And if you would like a really killer marinade recipe that uses alcohol and you can use it on any protein, just drop me a comment on this Facebook and I will be more than happy to get back to you. I can post it on my account and you can use it to your heart's content. Just let me know if that's something you'd like to see. So for today, that is all the time that I have. I just wanted to keep this short and sweet and share a really interesting little tip. I would encourage you to comment if you would like to see any other steak tips. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer on my next live, I would be more than happy to. I will have my barbecue sauce available on my website in the next few weeks, www.bigbadfoodtruck.com. If you'd like to give it a try, you can order it there. We also have an email list at the bottom of the website. If you go ahead and sign up now, you might just receive a special little offer for signing up before the launch of the sauce itself. If you would also like to meet me, try my sauce in person, try any of the food that I make on my truck, you can find me set up throughout the seacoast of New Hampshire and southern Maine, also on my website, bigbadfoodtruck.com, and by clicking on the Where Are We Today button on the home page. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. I really appreciate it. And remember, good ingredients make good food. Oh my.